She never expected a simple trip to the antique shop to change her life. It was just another quiet Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where the sun drifts lazily across the streets of her small town in Ohio, and nothing extraordinary ever seems to happen. But that day would leave her questioning everything she thought she knew about history, family, and the power of a single hidden message. Julia Harper had always loved old books. There was something about the smell of yellowed pages, the weight of history in her hands, and the delicate whisper of stories long forgotten that fascinated her. So when she wandered into Morrison's Antiques that morning, she was more curious than she cared to admit. The store was cramped and dusty, the kind of place where every shelf seemed to hum with secrets. Old clocks ticked unevenly, their hands frozen in time, and glass cases displayed fragile porcelain figurines and tarnished silver. Julia's eyes wandered until they landed on a small wooden shelf in the corner, a collection of old religious books. Her fingers brushed the spines, feeling the cracks and chips, until one book stood out. It was a Bible. Thick, leather-bound, with gilded edges now dulled by age. The year 1905 was embossed faintly on its spine. Julia's heart skipped a beat. 120 years old. She picked it up carefully. The cover was worn, the leather softened by decades of handling. She flipped it open. Nothing seemed unusual at first: old, delicate pages, a few marginal notes in faded ink. And then she saw it, a folded piece of paper tucked between the pages, yellowed with age, edges frayed. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. What she read would haunt her for the next several days: a confession, a plea, a story of love and loss, written by someone who had lived over a century ago. Julia carried the Bible home, the note clutched in her hand like it might vanish if she blinked. Sitting at her kitchen table, she examined the handwriting, elegant, deliberate, each stroke carrying a weight she couldn't quite place. The words were clear, but the emotions they carried leapt from the page: fear, longing, desperation, and an unmistakable love. To whoever finds this, the note began. If you are reading this, it means I am long gone, but my story, my truth, will live on. I am writing this in the hope that someone, anyone, will understand the life I could not fully share when I lived it. Julia's curiosity transformed into obsession. Who had written this? Why had they hidden it in a Bible, a sacred object of faith and history? And what truths lay buried in these carefully folded words? The note belonged to a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, born in 1880 in a small town in New England. Eleanor had lived through hardships that Julia could barely imagine: the loss of her father at a young age, a town recovering from economic hardship, and the societal expectations placed on women of her time. But through it all, Eleanor had discovered a love that society did not approve of, a secret she was forced to hide. The note recounted her story: a romance with a man named Samuel, a young preacher's son whose family had been at odds with Eleanor's for generations. Their love was forbidden, but pure, genuine, and full of hope. They had dreams of running away together, of building a life far from prying eyes, but circumstances and family pressure had forced them apart. I hide these words not to deceive, but to preserve, Eleanor wrote. I hope one day someone understands that love is sometimes more powerful than life itself, even if it cannot be lived openly. Julia could feel Eleanor's pain as if it were her own. The raw honesty in the note, the mixture of regret and hope, made Julia's eyes sting with tears. She read on, Learning about Eleanor's later life, how she had married another man chosen by her family, had children, and lived quietly, yet her heart had always remained with Samuel. Eleanor had written that she had hidden the note within the Bible deliberately. She wanted a part of her truth to survive, even if she could not live it herself. It was a testament to the choices she made, the sacrifices of love, and the persistence of memory. As Julia read, she realized this was not just a historical artifact. It was a message across time, a connection between lives separated by more than a century. She felt a strange kinship with Eleanor. Both women had faced societal pressures, both understood the weight of secrets, and both had been shaped by love and loss. Julia decided to share the note online, posting a photo of the fragile paper and a transcription. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People were captivated by Eleanor's story, moved by her honesty, and fascinated by the historical context. Some commenters shared their own family secrets, while others speculated about what might have happened to Samuel. It became clear to Julia that Eleanor's note had done exactly what it was meant to do. It had reached someone who could understand and honor her story. Determined to learn more, Julia began researching Eleanor Whitmore. Census records, birth and death certificates, and old newspapers provided pieces of the puzzle. She discovered that Eleanor had indeed married another man, had 3 children, and had lived a full life in secrecy about Samuel. But Samuel's story was harder to track. Julia spent months scouring historical records, letters, and archives. She eventually found a small note in a regional newspaper archive, a brief obituary mentioning that Samuel had passed away quietly, never married, and remained in New England. Julia felt a pang of sorrow. Their love had never been fulfilled in life, yet the note ensured it was remembered. Julia's research revealed a deeper context about the early 20th century. Women's rights were limited, societal norms were strict, and choices were often constrained by family and community expectations. Love stories like Eleanor and Samuel's were not rare, but rarely documented. Julia realized that Eleanor's note was not just personal, it was historically significant. By sharing Eleanor's words, Julia gave voice to the countless others whose stories had been silenced by time. She began documenting the story carefully, adding historical annotations and context, ensuring that viewers and readers could understand the reality of Eleanor's world, the challenges, the heartbreak, and the resilience required to live authentically. The note concluded with Eleanor's reflections on life, love, and memory. Though I may not have lived my dreams openly, my heart remained faithful. I leave this note not to seek sympathy, but to affirm that truth and love endure beyond the limitations of circumstance. Julia folded the note back into the Bible, carefully preserving it. She realized that the note's message was not about tragedy, but about endurance, the quiet courage of a woman who lived honestly in the only way she could, and the timeless power of truth to touch others across generations. Reading the note, Julia felt a mixture of sadness and awe. Eleanor's love story was tragic in some ways, but also beautiful, a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage, the decision to leave a message for the future, could ripple across time. Julia kept the Bible on her shelf, a constant reminder of Eleanor's courage. The story inspired her personally, shaping the way she approached life, love, and honesty. She realized that history is not only about dates and events, it is about people, their stories, and the truths they leave behind. And for viewers and listeners, the lesson is clear. Sometimes the greatest treasures are not gold or jewels, but the words of someone who dared to share their heart, even long after they were gone. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that span generations. Have you ever found a hidden note or letter that changed your life? Comment below. We'd love to hear your story. Remember, sometimes the smallest objects hold the deepest secrets and the most powerful truths.